Welcome back to my new series, focusing on characters we may see added in Warhammer 3 as legendary lords. Each week a new lord choice will be featured, based on your votes, and we will examine their lore, tabletop abilities, possible mechanics, and their chances of making it into the game. In the description each week, a new poll will be linked with several lord choices. If you don't like them, however, feel free to leave your choice in the comments. I will then tally the votes, and the winner will be the focus of next week's video. Last week we looked at Gorthor the Beast Lord, who, while an interesting character, is unlikely to appear in one of the limited slots left to the Beastmen, as more engaging alternatives exist. Today we shift our focus to the Empire, and the winner of last week's poll, Kurt Helborg, the Reiksmarshal. Kurt Helborg, the Reiksmarshal, is considered one of the Empire's greatest military commanders, and is among Karl Franz's most trusted advisors. The faith placed in Kurt by the Emperor is so great that he has entrusted him with the legendary Solon Runefang, a mighty weapon once lost in the battles against the vile war boss Gorbad Ironclaw. The Reiksmarshal is the very image of a heroic general. His engraved armour is polished to a mirror sheen, his courage is unbending, and his devotion to the security of the Empire is beyond reproach. In fact, he is so devout a warrior that he would sooner die than betray the faith shown in him by the Emperor and the people. In battle, Kurt Helborg commands the Empire's most deadly warriors, the Reiksguard, riding alongside them on his trusted steed Krieglust, a massive grey gelding said to have been sired by the finest stud in the Empire's stables. With Kurt's leadership, these highly trained men are an almost unstoppable force, as they thunder across the battlefield, driving the enemies of the Empire into the blood-soaked ground. As the Reiksmarshal, Kurt Helborg is also commander of all the Empire's armed forces, second only to Karl Franz himself. He has spent countless years of his adult life in battle, becoming one of the most experienced generals of any faction in the Old World. Kurt is known for numerous campaigns in the defense of the Empire, from his continued wars in the Great Mountains against the Orcs and Goblins, to his aid in the defense of Kislev against the forces of Chaos, to his little-known battles against the Ogre Reavers of Gutlord Breskus. Every victory served to improve his reputation, establishing his name as one of the greatest tacticians of his age. On the tabletop, Kurt will always ride into battle on his warhorse. As such, he should start the game on Krieglust, and I think be limited to his steed with no other mount options. Instead, I would have upgrades for his warhorse, improving the armor and attack stats, and I would have the model upgraded visually to represent those changes. Kurt has access to several special abilities. He is immune to psychology, and he is subject to the stubborn rule, where he takes break tests without penalties when losing an engagement. Simply giving him a high leadership value should be fine to represent this ability. His most beneficial special rule is the Emperor's Chosen. This is activated when Kurt joins a unit of Reiksguard Knights. The unit gains the immune to psychology special rule as long as he is with them. This could be represented as an area of effect buff for cavalry units in range of Kurt, gaining immunity to fear and terror. He also has access to 2 magic items. The Laurels of Victory shows that Kurt is one of the Empire's most celebrated heroes. Enchanted by the Wizards of the Grey Order, the magic within magnifies Kurt's stature in the eyes of his enemies, causing many to avoid fighting him in melee. This is represented with each unsaved wound that Kurt inflicts, but not his mount, causing 2 wounds when the combat result is calculated. In Warhammer 3, we could have the Laurels provide the following effects: increased control in the local region, increased leadership range on the battlefield, decreased leadership for enemy characters within Kurt's leadership area, and increased weapon damage. The Laurels could be provided when Kurt reaches a certain level, instead of a full-on quest battle. The second item which he carries is the Solent Runefang, the legendary blade from the province of Solent, which was nearly destroyed by the rampaging war of the war boss, Gorbad Ironclaw. It was long lost, but upon its recovery, the magical blade was entrusted to Kurt Helborg by the Emperor. Its effect sees all hits from the Runefang wounding automatically, with no armor saves allowed. In Warhammer 3, the Solent Runefang could provide the following effects: increased armor-piercing damage, increased melee attack, does magical damage, and experience gained increased by about 30%. I would have the Runefang available through a quest battle, where Kurt could go up against an orc or goblin tribe that has ownership of the blade. So, what could Kurt have as a unique mechanic? What stands out in his lore that we could use? I suppose something related to him being so widely revered in the Empire, though how would such a mechanic work? Perhaps each elect account, providing Kurt with missions, which when completed would increase the diplomatic standing of Kurt's faction with the province. He could also act as a shortcut to Confederation, so when enough missions have been completed, Kurt gets to confederate that faction. Bonuses provided, apart from diplomatic, could be control, growth, increased trade, and so on, and perhaps even access to unique units from the elect accounts region. We could also see bonuses tied specifically to provinces. For instance, in the lore, Nuln contains the Empire's gunnery school, and we could see bonuses from this province awarded that improved the player's artillery. We would need to have the missions be optional, so that the player is not pressured into doing them, so something similar to the mechanic currently used by the ogres could act as the foundation, just with much better rewards and not set halfway across the map. His mechanic could be tied into the Gathering of Souls, by having each soul recovered increase the respect afforded your faction by the elect accounts, providing bonuses as if you had completed one of their missions. As Reiksmarshal of the Empire, it makes sense for Kurt to start within its borders, perhaps even at Altdorf itself. Since we are very unlikely to see any existing lords added to the Realms of Chaos campaign as playable factions, we could see Kurt representing Reichland in place of the Emperor. Then, when playing on the combined campaign map, he could be given his own faction, the Reiksguard Expedition, or something along those lines, and start in the Grey Mountains fighting the Greenskins, or perhaps to the north, engaged in a conflict with the Norskins and Chaos. His faction bonuses would improve cavalry and increase across the board the leadership of troops under his command. He could also provide a significant reduction in upkeep cost for higher tier cavalry, to represent his years of experience with the logistics of war. What reason he would have for participating in the Race for the Souls mechanic would be anyone's guess, but I'm sure it will be something to do with the defense of the Empire against the tides of chaos. So, what are the odds of Kurt Helborg being added to Warhammer 3? We currently find ourselves with 4 legendary lords for the Empire from the previous games: Karl Franz, Volkmar the Grim, Balthazar Gelt, and Marcus Wolfhart, giving us 1 melee-focused lord, 2 with more of a magical focus, and a ranged focused lord. Kurt would be an additional melee lord, and with such a reputation, he should be up there with Karl in terms of power. With him always being mounted, he would help elevate the potential of cavalry in the Empire's roster. That gives him some distinction from the other lords we already have, but nothing overly exciting. I fear that while Kurt is among the Empire's finest generals in the lore, he is lacking something special to make him truly stand out in the game. There is also the matter that the units that Kurt is most associated with, the Reiksguard, are already in the roster, meaning he would have little to offer in the way of new units sharing a theme. Then we need to take into consideration the sheer number of characters vying for the Empire's remaining slots, with competition like Boris Todbringer, Marius Leitdorf, Luther Huss, and Elspeth von Draken, all having compelling stories or reasons to be in the game. Creative Assembly has all but confirmed Boris Todbringer as a legendary lord for Game 3, with their comment where they said he would get his turn in the sun, so the potential slots available are even more limited. So ultimately, I'm sorry to say I don't think that Kurt will make it into Game 3 as a playable legendary lord, though there is always the potential for him to show up as a legendary hero at some point. So there we have Kurt Helborg, one of the most staunch defenders of the Empire. Would you like to see him added to the Empire roster? Do you agree that he is better suited as a hero in the game? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video and will leave a like or subscribe. And please don't forget to vote in the poll for who you want to see next. This video was brought to you with the help of my patrons. Big thanks to Hot Apple Pie and Solarith Magnetar. If you would also like to help out the channel, then you can check out Patreon or become a member here on YouTube. I'm Grey Tiger. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.